If the best teams always won and the highest graded players always became the best, sports would become boring. But there is something about the underdog rising to the top that always grabs the attention of fans. Fortunately, we are in the midst of another underdog story. For the first time, the last pick of the draft is exceeding all expectations and writing his name in the record books. This is the story of the insane rise of Brock Purdy from Mr. Irrelevant to a starter for the San Francisco 49ers. If you haven't been following high school and college football, you might have only recently heard the name Brock Purdy. You see, Purdy was ranked a 3-star quarterback coming out of Perry High School in Gilbert, Arizona. It was during his senior year that the young star was making a name for himself, leading his team to the state championship. Unfortunately, Purdy and his team lost 49-42, but it was the numbers he put up during the season that got the attention of scouts. In his final year, Purdy threw for 4,410 yards and 57 touchdowns, adding another 1,106 rushing yards to his overall tally by the end of the year. In fact, these stats earned him the coveted Arizona Gatorade Player of the Year in the 2017 season. With his high school career ending, Purdy had to make a few choices. Before choosing a college, the young Purdy visited 5 different schools: Texas A&M, Iowa State, Central Florida, Alabama, and Boise State. But with Alabama being arguably one of the best football schools in the country, many expected the young Purdy to end up in the state. But Purdy didn't really feel comfortable when meeting Alabama's head coach at the time, Nick Saban. In fact, the encounter between the two didn't go as planned, with Saban having the following to say: "You're below average in height. Your arm strength is whatever. Your accuracy is average." And it was here that Purdy realized he wasn't going to Alabama. He told his high school coach that Saban didn't really know him because accuracy was his main strength. Unfortunately, an ill-informed Saban was the reason Purdy didn't choose Alabama. This led the young Purdy to choose Iowa State. They truly made him feel at home. Being a freshman, Purdy found himself as the third-string quarterback behind senior Kyle Kent and sophomore Zeb Nolan. Kent would go on to tear his MCL during the 2018 season opener, jumping Purdy up to second string. Purdy finally got his shot in Week 5. Matt Campbell, Iowa State coach, sent in Brock Purdy. This would seal Purdy as the starter for the next 4 years, and he would lead pass completions in the Big 12 Conference for 3 consecutive years from 2019 to 2021, while leading passing yards in 2019 and 2021 respectively. But as 2021 came around, Purdy was finishing up his college career, and the 2022 NFL Draft was looming. You see, each year, prospective NFL players get together in the Combine, where experts would assess and grade prospects. In fact, the top players often get a grade of 7 or higher, but for Purdy, a rating of 5.57 didn't spell any real prospects of making it big in the NFL. A rating of 5.57 meant that Purdy would end up as an undrafted free agent. However, 2022 was one of the worst years for the quarterback position in the NFL Draft, with Kenny Pickett being the only quarterback drafted in the first 2 rounds by the Pittsburgh Steelers. By the time April 30 rolled around, it was on to rounds 5, 6, and 7. But as we all know, no one really cares about the draft at this point aside from the final pick on the day, which the NFL often celebrates with a jersey that spots the name Mr. Irrelevant. No one expects the 262nd pick of the draft to ever make it, and people will likely forget him within the next year. But in the 2022 draft, the San Francisco 49ers drafted Brock Purdy with their final pick, meaning he already surpassed predictions of not being left out as an undrafted free agent. The only time players picked as low as Purdy actually get some game time is during the preseason, eventually fading away, and many of them often miss the cut. However, this was a chance for Purdy to make the official 53-man roster for the season. Much like he had done during college, Purdy certainly grabbed the opportunity with both hands and played in 3 of the preseason games. He would end up completing 30 of 49 passes with 346 total yards over 3 games. Purdy added a single touchdown and interception to his tally, finishing with a passer rating of 80.8. Now, to the hardcore NFL fan, these numbers will by no means set the world alight, but to Kyle Shanahan, it was good enough to beat Nate Sudfeld for the third-string position. Shanahan was quoted as saying, Credit to Brock, how good Brock played in this preseason. I thought he was going to be on our practice squad because we were really happy with Nate, but Brock won that job. In fact, Shanahan hinted that keeping Brock on the 16-man practice squad would have been a real challenge and that other teams might have snapped up the young talent. But the NFL season was about to kick off. You see, Trey Lance was currently the starting quarterback for the 49ers, with Jimmy Garoppolo as backup. For the opening game against the Chicago Bears, Lance had a rough outing with challenging weather conditions, going 13 for 28 and only passing for 164 yards with an interception. Unfortunately, Lance would suffer a season-ending ankle injury in Week 2, elevating Garoppolo to starter and Purdy to the backup position. Jimmy G would finish the game against the Seahawks, leading the 49ers to victory. At first, things didn't exactly go to plan, but by Week 13, the 49ers were 7-4 under Jimmy Garoppolo. It was during the Week 13 game against the Dolphins that Jimmy Garoppolo would break his foot after being sacked, which would rule him out for the remainder of the season. Fortunately, Mr. Irrelevant was ready to step up. After completing 25 of 37 passes and going for 237 yards with 2 touchdowns, Purdy ended the game against the Dolphins with an 88.8 passer rating, giving the 49ers an 8-4 season record going into Week 14. Week 14 would be the biggest challenge as Purdy would come face-to-face with the greatest quarterback to play the game, Tom Brady. Starting his first game ever in the NFL, Purdy completed 16 of 21 passes for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns, adding another rushing touchdown, and the 49ers essentially blew out the Bucs 35-7. Purdy would go undefeated for the rest of the regular season, leading the 49ers past the Seattle Seahawks in the wildcard round and Dallas Cowboys in the divisional round before falling to the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship. During the game, Brock would go down with a serious elbow injury, essentially tearing his UCL, abruptly ending the playoff hopes and dreams for the 49ers. To sum it all up, Purdy would save the 49ers and solidify his status as the starting quarterback moving forward, going undefeated in his first 5 games and 8-1 including the playoffs. But what does the future hold for the young star? Brock Purdy is without a doubt the #1 quarterback on the 49ers team for now and the foreseeable future. Kyle Shanahan had the following to say: "He would have to melt in practice to lose the QB1 job." And it also seems that everybody is now getting on board. As of this video, Purdy has written his name into the history books with a recent win over the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 1 of the 2023 NFL season, becoming the first player quarterback in NFL history to win his first 6 regular season starts while throwing 2 or more touchdowns in each game. But it seems the story of Brock Purdy is nowhere near finished, and the young Iowa State star seems to be on the same trajectory as the legendary Tom Brady himself, a quarterback drafted in the later rounds who exceeded expectations. So with Brock leading a high-powered offense with stars like Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Kyle Juszczyk, can Mr. Irrelevant complete his improbable underdog story and lead the San Francisco 49ers to a Super Bowl win? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to check out some of the dirtiest NFL players of all time.